All right. Welcome. In this lesson, we want to look at the topic of how do I know when I've run into the person I should marry? We might call that finding the one. What should I look for in a potential husband or wife? And I want to give you some practical applications, some practical things to look for. In the book of Proverbs chapter 19 and in verse 14, let's start there, Proverbs 19:14. We do not want to get to a point in our lives where we say something like, I wish I'd known this before. I wish someone had told me about these things before I had gotten married. We want to also avoid simply making a mistake. We want to aim much higher than just, I want to avoid making a mistake. In Proverbs chapter 19 and in verse 14, house and wealth are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. We want to marry the person that God would truly want us to have in our life. The first area I want to look at is look for someone who has either transparency, or I guess that's just a new word for an old word, that is honesty. I'm talking about marrying someone that doesn't pretend around you. It seems like a lot of the dating these days is, and maybe for a long time it's been this way, of trying to put on an act or kind of a front. In the book of Romans chapter 12 and verse 9, you want to look for someone who is not acting or pretending. You want to marry someone who is genuine and honest with you and real. Book of Romans 12 verse 9 says, let love be without hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is acting, play acting, kind of playing a role or a part, but it's not really who you are. Love must be genuine, one translation says. Remember, you're not marrying an image, you're marrying a real person. Now, some practical applications of honesty or transparency would be that you want to marry someone who is honest with the truth, particularly with God's truth. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and in verse 6, among other things that the Bible says about love, real love, is that love does not rejoice in unrighteousness or evil or sin or falsehood, but rejoices with the truth. You want someone who is honest, but not just honest with people. You want someone who's honest with God. And I found that the person who is honest with God first is typically the person who's then honest with all the other people in his or her life. You're going to want someone that you can share your feelings with, that you can communicate with, and the conversation's not just one-sided, that they will talk to you in return. You also, in the book of Proverbs chapter 9, another part of honesty and transparency would be you want to marry someone who can take constructive criticism. You want someone who can improve themselves and is willing to do that, and who can laugh at themselves and really have an honest view of who they are right now. You want someone secure. In Proverbs chapter 9 and in verse 8 it says, do not reprove a scoffer, lest he hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. You want someone who will grow with you, mature with you, grow spiritually with you as well. And so you want to, as you're dating someone, you're going to want to look at how they take some constructive criticism or advice. Are they resistant? Do they kind of have the attitude that they know everything? They don't need any help from you, and they don't want your advice. Or are they someone willing to listen to truth, no matter who says it? Are they someone who wants over the years to improve themselves, and that they don't want to just stay 18 or 20 or 21 or 30 for all their life? When they're 40, they want to be a mature 40. They're open to learning, and they're open to growing. In the book of Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 17, there's another statement. And it's a statement where we need to make sure that we marry someone that is good for us, because it can be very miserable if we don't. Proverbs 15:17, better is a dish of vegetables where love is than a fatted ox and hatred with it. And that just tells you that there really is no price that you can put on a relationship where you have genuine love. Many people have found that a home where material possessions are few but love is present is far better than a house full of just all sorts of things, but where people hate each other. Hatred, dislike in a relationship will undo whatever physical comforts life affords you. You want to marry somebody that you can relax around. And in the book of Proverbs chapter 17 and in verse 9 it says, he who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. You're going to want someone who is enjoyable to be with, who is forgiving, who doesn't hold grudges. You can be yourself. You don't have to be perfect around them. They're not putting you on a pedestal. And as I talk about these things, I want you to ask yourself, are you transparent? Are you honest? Are you someone who loves the truth? Do you want to grow? Are you good at taking constructive criticism? Do you listen to it? Or do you resent people telling you things or seeking to tell you things that are in your best interest? Are you comfortable to be around? Can people relax in your presence? Secondly, another thing to look to or look for in a potential mate, do they contribute to your spiritual growth? As you spend time around them, do you get stronger? Are you more encouraged by their presence, or are you less encouraged? Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And one writer called that proverb stimulating contact. And we see that. We see that among educators or scholars. We see it among artists and athletes that can sharpen each other by competition, by an exchange of ideas, by constructive criticism. One writer said, people must not shy away from interaction with their peers, since it is an education in itself. There are friends that will sharpen your character, that will motivate you, that you will want to be better around them. They will encourage you to strive for higher goals. They will make you think. And they will make you think a lot deeper about things. There are also people that seem to dull us. They dull us in action. They create apathy. They dull us into skepticism. We want to marry someone who's going to sharpen us. We want to marry someone who will make us think. We want to marry someone who will seek to bring about the best in us. We don't want to marry someone who will make excuses for us. And men, particularly men, do not marry a woman who will make excuses for you. Don't marry the type of woman that if you lose a job and it's your fault, don't marry a woman who's going to make all these excuses how it was somebody else's fault. You want a woman who encourages you, but you want to marry a woman who tells you the truth about yourself and is honest with you. We want you to marry a woman that when you're in private, she will tell you the things that you're doing that are annoying, or the things that you need to work on, or where you can improve yourself. That's the type of person you want to marry, someone that will sharpen you. What type of individual are you? When other people around you, are they stimulated? Do they think things that are deeper than they usually think? Are they, when you leave a conversation, is there moral confusion or moral clarity? Do you tend to muddy the water, or do you tend to sharpen the focus of a conversation? So, you want to marry someone that will help you solve problems, not just talk about problems or pick or try to find problems. You want to marry a problem solver, someone intent on doing that together. You want to marry someone, as one writer said, you know that he's in it for you and not just his own agenda. That is, his world is not just all about himself or herself, but the world includes you, God, and a lot of other people. Number 3, you want to marry someone who's sold on your success and the success of your marriage and the success of your family. Is she in it for me? Will she listen to and encourage and expand your dreams? Will she make you feel like a bigger and better person? Will she see your potential and encourage you to reach that potential? One writer said, love does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking together in the same direction. The same direction, of course, should be heaven and spiritual goals and character and integrity and raising great children together and being examples. Someone that sees you as an asset, not the competition. You're in this marriage, and in this marriage, in this dating, you're not competing. You're not trying to better or beat one another. You realize that this person is a tremendous asset. That this person has talents you don't have, and you want them to be part of your life. I think there's a number of passages that basically back that up. One would be in Matthew chapter 19 and verse 5, where husband and wife are called one flesh. You're a team. Another one would be in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. I want to read that at this point. It's going to be 1 Peter chapter 3 and in verse 7. And here's what Peter says to couples. You husbands likewise live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker vessel, since she is a woman, and grant her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life. That is, you have an inheritance in heaven and she has an inheritance in heaven, and you're both headed in the same direction. You're a team. In like manner, in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18, the woman is called a helpmeet, or a helper suitable, or one that would help the man achieve what that man needs to achieve. There's another verse, though, I would like you to consider. That's in Proverbs chapter 31. It's in the context of the worthy woman. It's Proverbs 31, and it is verse 12. And I've always liked this passage. Verse 10 says, an excellent wife who can find, for her worth is far above jewels. Realize when you're dating, you're looking for something priceless. Really, when you're dating, you're looking for something that you really can't afford if you had to pay for it. A good wife or a good husband, there's really no value you can place on that type of individual. So realize that you're looking for something that is just not common and everyday, and you're just not going to find it anywhere. And I think that's important to note. Also, don't feel sorry for yourself right now if you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or engaged, because good people to marry are not just found everywhere. There's a reason that you have not run into 10 or 20 people that you could marry and they would just all work out fine for you. There's a reason for that. The worthy woman is, her value is far above price, jewels and things like that. And the same thing is true for a good man. So you're not looking for 10 candidates or 20 candidates. You're looking for one person whose value is far above rubies. So of course you're not going to find one every year in high school. You're not going to be necessarily dating a person all the time. And so that's okay. That's okay. You're looking for something that's very valuable and precious. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. If I was dating someone, I would look at, does this person do me good? Does this person cover my back? Do I trust them? Don't marry anyone that you can't trust. If you have trust issues when you're dating, that's not somebody that you should marry. Because the stakes are only going to get higher when you're going to marry. The next point, mutual respect. In the book of Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 21, There the Bible says, and be subject to one another in the fear of Christ. The Bible makes it clear that the husband is the head of the wife, and that would be found in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23, for the husband is the head of the wife. At the same time, I think in verses like this, in verse 21, there is mutual respect. Look again at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. The husband is to treat his wife with honor. Do not marry someone that doesn't treat you with honor. If you're dating a man and he treats you with disrespect and says dishonorable things to you, you need to run. Do not marry someone that doesn't speak to you in an honorable way, that doesn't treat you with honor, that doesn't value your views with honor, doesn't treat your parents in an honorable way. Do not marry someone that ridicules you, that mocks you, that continually makes fun of you. Don't marry someone who seeks to run you down or seeks to make you look bad so they feel good about themselves. That's a horrible situation to be in. Not only in dating, how much more in a marriage. But honor involves some things. That is, honor would involve that even though the husband is the head of the wife, honor involves and mutual respect involves that a woman is going to put her input into solving problems as well. And that you're going to work together on problems and work together on disagreements. Do not marry someone who likes to fix blame, who is always blaming somebody else for their problems. Also, do not marry someone who doesn't talk, who expects you to do all the talking and expects you to do all the problem solving. You know, like, well, I'll be over here. When you get that fixed, you come and see me. Rather, marry someone who will work together on things, who will give input. Don't marry a man who, what do you think about that? Don't marry somebody like that. Marry someone who's willing to contribute to the relationship. It's not going to be very fun where you could be married and having children and ask your husband or your wife, what do you think we should do about that? And hear, or, well, that's your area. You're good at that. Marry someone who's willing to be part of the team and who's willing to socialize with you, who's willing to serve with you, who's willing to parent with you, who's willing to work on the marriage with you. Don't marry someone that gives you the impression that if there's any problem in your relationship, it's all you. It's all you, and so you got to fix it because there's nothing wrong with them. Anyone you marry is going to be a sinner. That is, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Anyone you marry is not going to be perfect. So typically problems in a relationship always take two people to resolve. Now, mutual respect also means that you're willing to give up. You're willing to give up some of your freedom for the relationship. Do not marry someone who's very jealous about their freedom and is going to only give you the minimum amount of time. That's a selfish individual. You want to marry someone who's going to put the time into the relationship and who's going to say to you by their actions, you're worth my time, you're worth my freedom. I'm going to work my schedule around you. You do not have to you don't have to try to fit yourself into my schedule. That's something else I would look for. If I was marrying someone, a man or a woman, I would not marry someone who gives me the impression that I'm simply going to have to work my way into their schedule. Also, as you're dating, of course, all couples have differences. You're not necessarily looking for someone who matches up with you in every realm. Differences can be good. Differences can be healthy. But you want your differences to complement the relationship. You don't want your differences to tear down the relationship. And so when we talk about differences, what they like to eat, where they like to vacation, things like that, we can all work around that. But there are some things that we can't work around, and one of the things that we can't work around are spiritual differences as far as loyalty to God. We have to have that in common. We have to have God in common and God's law in common and God's level of ethics and morality in common. We have to have God's standards in common. Another area, particularly during dating. First of all, you should marry someone you desire. That is, that you find attractive. That is important. It is important to be attracted to the person that you're marrying. It's unfair to marry someone and then kind of spring it on them later that you're not really attracted to them that much. That is unfair. Don't spring that on somebody. Marry somebody that you're attracted to. But while you're dating, your contentment should be just as strong as your attraction. That doesn't mean that you have to wait a long, long time before you marry. I'm not saying that a period of engagement should be a long period of time. But you should be willing to wait, and you should be willing to rejoice in what you have right now. We want to make sure, there are some courtships that are very quick, and nothing necessarily wrong with a quick courtship. Sometimes you find the person and you have God in common, and you need to move on, and you need to move on to marriage. But the motive for moving on to marriage quickly, that's what I want you to consider. You should never move quickly on the marriage from the motivation of, I need to marry them now before they change their mind. That should never be the reason that you move quickly into a marriage. That's a bad reason. There are a number of just great verses, but I want to look at a passage there in the book of Philippians chapter 4. First of all, if I was looking for someone to marry, I would look for someone who is content, who is happy already. And before I marry, I would have to ask myself, am I content? Don't marry somebody to find happiness. Don't marry somebody to get happy. If you're not happy now, if you're miserable now, don't marry because you're just going to make somebody else miserable pretty quick. Don't enter into marriage until you've reached a point in your own life where you're mature enough that you can be happy when you're alone all by yourself. You can still be happy without the distraction of life. You like who you are right now. Now, you're really looking forward to getting married, and you're really looking forward to being with this person. But that person is not the sum total of your happiness. You've already got happiness. Now, they will certainly enhance your happiness and add certain other components to your happiness. But you've got God already in your life. You like who you are. You're a Christian and you're saved, and you like how you're growing. And so you're already content. You need to be that person before you marry. Philippians chapter 4, verse 10 says, in verse 11, not that I speak from want, for I've learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. And that's what I mean by right now as you're dating before you marry, if you're dating someone, you need to have a strong desire for them. That's healthy. But you need to have an equal contentment. That is, that you're enjoying your dating years as well. You're just not daydreaming your life away and saying, boy, I can't wait until we get married and then we'll be happy. Well, yeah, I hope you'll be happy then, but you need to be happy now. Be careful about marrying someone who wants you to take them away from their unhappiness. Be careful about marrying someone that is throwing all their happiness into you. That's dangerous because you're going to let them down. You're not perfect. If they put you on a pedestal, you're going to fall off. And so, another way of saying that is don't marry somebody who's really immature and doesn't have God as the center of their life and their happiness. Another area I want to look at, how does this person you're dating handle pressure? If you're out on a date and the car gets a flat tire, how does that man or woman respond? If you plan a date and something happens, maybe the restaurant's closed, maybe there's a traffic jam or whatever, but the plans for that day did not go as planned, how they respond to that? Don't shy away from those times. Those are great times. Don't Don't say, oh great, look at what happened, because that's a great learning experience. This person you're dating, you want to see them under pressure. You want to see how they respond when life is not perfect. One of the problems sometimes in dating someone is you're always seeing them on their best behavior. The great thing about being on a date with someone and something happens and the unexpected happens and now there's some pressure and stress is, do they fall apart? Do they go off the handle? Do they explode in anger? Or do they handle it in a mature way? The reason you want to see that is because when you get into a marriage, the pressure is only more, not less. The stresses and pressures of marriage are far more those of dating. So if they fly off the handle when the car gets a flat tire, guess what's going to happen when you don't have dinner on time, when you come home late from work and didn't call ahead, or you just make a mistake? That's why you want to see how they react right now. Are they a safe individual to be around when life doesn't go perfectly? You're looking for this individual in the book of Romans chapter 5 and in verse 3. We exult in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance, perseverance proven character, and proven character hope. That is, you're looking for someone who's flexible. You're looking for someone, you go to a movie and it finds out the movie's already sold out, and the person says, well, we can see that another time. Hey, and is flexible and can just move on to something else. You're out on a date, the car gets a flat tire, and the person either says, hey, I got AAA, we can sit here, we can wait for them to come, we have a chance to talk, or here, would you come out and help me, or time me, let's see how quick I can do it. You want someone that can react well to challenges, because married life is all about unexpected challenges. And you're going to want someone who failure and mistakes draw you closer together. That is, they present an opportunity, not an annoyance. I would not date a man who I would not marry a man who has a fuse about that short and the littlest things tick him off. I would not marry somebody that a little thing ruins their whole day. And they're not going to be any fun to be with in a marriage. I would not marry somebody that I'm always the one trying to keep this person happy. And I'm always the one trying to keep this person upbeat. That's going to be exhausting in a relationship. So, but how are you though? Let's make some personal application to us. How are you at handling unexpected changes in life? How do you respond when life doesn't go perfectly? What's your temper like? What do you do when things just don't work out the way you planned them and you had big hopes in your plans and when you were looking really, really forward to those plans? Can you kind of roll with the punches? Can you appreciate the blessings you have? Can you remain have an optimistic attitude, or do you just completely fall apart? Well, if you fall apart, then probably you shouldn't be getting married either. Book of Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11, I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, and the battle is not to warriors, and neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to discerning, nor favor to men of ability, for time and chance overtake them all. And do not think that if you marry them, they're going to change. If you're dating a man that just is all bent out of shape all the time for the little things, or a woman like that, don't think, well, my love is just going to calm them down, and once we get married, it will change. It will not change. If anything, it will get worse, because now you will become the object of their anger. Because you're going to disappoint them. You're going to disappoint them. We all disappoint people. We're imperfect. I would also carefully look like at a restaurant. They order a meal at a restaurant. What if it's not just right? What if their steak was a little bit too done or a little bit too rare? Are they throwing the napkin down? Are they chewing out the waitress? Take a note. If they do that, guess what? When you get married, you will be that waitress. You'll be the person that inadvertently scratched their car. You will be the idiot on the highway that is going too slow. You're going to be that person. Whatever anger you see in a person during a relationship, that's the same type of anger that's going to be directed towards you when you're married to them. Don't have this myth that, well, everyone else will feel that except me. Because unfortunately, people tend to treat the person they're married to at times not as good as other people around them. They somehow feel that they can treat their mate in a way that they would never ever dare treat other people. In Proverbs chapter 24 and in verse 10, I want to develop this a little bit more. I really like this set of passages, because what this set of passages does is it removes some of our excuses, common excuses that we hear. Here's Proverbs 24 verse 10. Ready? If you're slack in the day of distress, your strength is limited. That is, if you fall apart, fall apart during a time of pressure, you got work to do. You got personal work. You got growth that you need to work on. Deliver those who are being taken away to death, and those who are staggering to slaughter, oh, hold them back. If you say, see, we did not know this, does he not consider it who weighs the hearts? And does he not know it who keeps your soul? And will he not render the man according to his work? And I like what one writer said about this section of Scripture. We have a number of things here. Number one, we have bad conditions, verse 10. And we have what some people might consider hopeless tasks in verse 11. And then in verse 12, we have what some might call pardonable ignorance. Three excuses people make for why they cannot be responsible. Three common excuses that people sometimes make why they did not get involved, or why they did not keep their cool, or why they were not able to finish the job. One excuse is the conditions were unfair. Well, I would have done better, but boy, it was a hard day under a lot of stress today. God says that is not an excuse. Never plead. Well, I know, honey, my anger's out of control, but I've been under a lot of stress lately. That's an excuse. A person who says that is not working on their anger. God says, if you fall apart and crumble, in a day of adversity, in a day of trial and testing and temptation, well, your strength is small. That's kind of pitiful. You should be able to endure more than that. You should be able to handle that a lot better. So never plead, and I would be very careful about dating or marrying someone who's always excusing their short temper. Because that seems to be verse 10. If you can't keep your temper under control when you have a flat tire, man, your strength is small. If you can't keep your temper under control when your steak is not done just right at a restaurant, or when you're in traffic, your strength is small. If you can't keep your anger under control when someone gives you some constructive criticism, that's kind of sad. If you can't discuss either politics or religion or whatever without blowing up, that's sad. The next verse is verse 11. That is, some people have said, well, it's just a hopeless task. I would get involved, but there's no use in getting involved. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to happen. I would speak up and deliver those people, but hey, here's the world we live in, and there's nothing you can do about it. And God said, I am not impressed by that excuse of this hopeless task. It's amazing. It's amazing what a couple can accomplish when they both put their minds on God, they both put their trust in Scripture, and they both work hard. It's amazing the problems that couples can overcome when they don't have this excuse of, well, it's hopeless, or everyone has this problem. And verse 12, do not, if you're planning on showing up at the judgment day with the excuse, well, I didn't know about it, God said, I am not going to be impressed. Take a look again at Proverbs chapter 24, verses 10 through 12. Adversity is a fair test. It is not unfair. And I would be careful about dating someone who's always calling things unfair. That the way they're treating me at work, that's unfair. The way mom and dad treated me, that's unfair. Everything's always unfair. I would shy away from the person that everything's always unfair. What God is saying is that trial is fair. Trial is always a fair test of who you are. Do not resent it. Overcome it. Learn from it. Let it refine you. But never say about a trial, this is so unfair. It's a very fair test of what you're made of. And it is very fair for someone, if you're dating someone and things don't go perfect on a date, don't get upset with God. That was a very fair trial, and what that allowed the person you're dating to see is whether they want to marry you or not. Do you have what it takes? Do you have the right stuff? And it was a very fair test for you to look at yourself and say, am I ready? Am I mature enough? I mean, if I'm not mature enough to handle this trial, how am I going to ever handle the challenges of marriage? One writer said this, it takes patience to appreciate domestic bliss. Volatile spirits prefer unhappiness. I would not date or marry anyone who prefers unhappiness. That is, who sabotages relationships, who gets very nervous when things are going smooth, who gets very nervous where it might look like they might live happily ever after. That person is very, very dangerous. And if you're that way, if you're someone who things get too well and you try to sabotage that, don't marry anyone. Don't marry anyone right now. You need to work on that character flaw first. Now, another area here. You want to marry someone who is serious, or let me put that away. You want to marry someone who can be serious about the right things or serious at the right time. There are occasions to be serious. Book of Ecclesiastes says there's a time to laugh and there's a time to cry. You want to marry someone who knows when, understands the difference. In the book of Titus chapter 2, it says in verse 5 that younger women are to be sensible. Then, in verse 6, young men need to be sensible, or they need to be able to be serious about the right things. And so I want to marry someone who can be serious about God, serious about parenting, serious about finances, serious about sticking to a budget, serious about working on problems, serious about being honest in a relationship. All right, I want to marry someone like that. And also, when we talk about that, when we talk about what we talked about, honesty and transparency, you want to marry someone who's willing to open up their financial life to you and say, here's what the books look like. Here's where the money goes. Do not marry a man who doesn't tell you the truth about his money. Do not marry a man who hides money from you. And also couples, I think it's a really bad idea to have separate checking accounts and kind of split up where you pay the bills for this and you pay the bills for that. There needs to be honesty in a relationship. You need to be able to trust one another. You need to be able to work together as a team. You need to be willing to sacrifice for each other. I would be very leery about marrying someone who says, well, my money's my money, and I'm not going to tell you what I got. And I'm not going to tell you what the balances on my credit cards are. There needs to be honesty and transparency when it comes to financial things as well. Now, so there needs to be seriousness. But what I also want to add to that is there needs to be some playfulness. You need to be able to relax around this person. And you need to be able to marry someone who can relax. And you need to find someone who's already happy in their life. You need to be able to laugh at life. You need to be able to laugh at each other. You need to be able to laugh at yourself, at your own shortcomings. I think 1 Corinthians chapter 13 where it says in verse 4 says, love, it's not arrogant. It does not act unbecomingly. It's not rude, and it does not seek its own. And I think when you look at that, what it looks like is you got someone who's humble, and you got someone who doesn't think they're God, and they don't think they're perfect, and they don't think they're God's gift to women or God's gift to men. And you got someone who can see their own flaws and be honest about them. And when you and others point them out, they'll smile and they say, yep, that's me. That's me. So you want to find someone who has a certain playfulness about them as well, that not everything is serious, and that not every moment demands some sort of serious expression. Again, you want someone that you can relax around. If you're dating someone and you don't feel relaxed around them, do not marry them. And then as we close this particular lesson, you want to marry someone who's wise. Now, some would say, well, you want to, if I'm talking to Christians here, you want to marry another Christian, and I think there's a lot of value to that. But unfortunately, Christians come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Just because one professes they're a Christian doesn't mean they're wise. There are some miserable Christians out there, and there are some discouraged Christians, and there are some nasty Christians. And there are some unwise Christians. Or that is people who profess to be Christians. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, it says, be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. You want to marry someone who's wise. And that doesn't necessarily mean someone who has a huge IQ, but you want to marry someone who makes good choices. Maybe that would be the best way of summing up. Well, Mark, what do you mean by someone wise? I mean someone who makes good choices with their time and good choices with their money. No, not that they're the most shrewd investor, but they make good choices as far as paying their bills and working hard. They make good choices about what they say and what they don't say. They just don't blabber things around. They're not a gossip. But that they're wise. And they're wise about relationships. And they're wise about the decisions that they make in relationships. A lot of people out there can talk a really good game, but they don't live it. Again, when you're dating someone, look at how they seek, because you're going to have even arguments at times when you're dating. Are they the type of person that seeks to very quickly diffuse the argument and talk about it and work about it in a way that's constructive? There you go. Or do they throw gasoline on the argument? Are they trying to work on things together with you? Or are they primarily into themselves, and just as long as they look good and feel good and they come out winning the argument, that's the only thing that matters to them? Which are they? Are they wise? When you see them interact with other people, are they wise? When they tell you about their past as a Christian, or their dating past, or their financial past, do you see a number of wise decisions in their life, in their job, in their education? Does it look like this person makes wise decisions? And you're going to find, no matter who you date, they've made some unwise decisions. How they handle them? Yeah, everyone makes unwise decisions, but did they correct them? Was there a wise response to the unwise decision? How do they look at those unwise decisions? Are they humble and say, did they shake their head and say, yeah, that was a dumb thing I did? Are they humble? Are they sorrowful? Have they learned the lesson? Or are they defiant? When you go back in the past and say, boy, why'd you do that? And they go, well, who are you? And you're being judgmental. Are they defensive? I would not marry anybody who's defensive, because a defensive person is not a wise person. Again, Book of Proverbs chapter 9 is, teach a wise man, rebuke a wise man, and he will increase in learning. Wise men are not defensive about their sins and their mistakes. Wise men want to learn. Wise men want to get wiser. And then as we close, As I said, it's easy for people to talk a good talk. It's easy for people to put up a front. If you're dating someone and they seem nice to family or friends or coworkers or whatever, their buddies, but they're not nice to you, and you're thinking, boy, everyone else seems to think this is such a nice person, but boy, they're not nice to me. Do not say to yourself, well, there must be something wrong with me, because there isn't. There are people out there that tend to treat other people okay or nice, but are horrible to the person they're dating or married to. Don't think there's something wrong with you when you're in a relationship with like that. If you're in a relationship with someone, either a woman or a man, who tends to be like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that they put on this wonderful face in public, but in private they are abusive or whatever, run. Run for your life. Don't buy into the myth of, well, maybe they will change, or maybe it's me, or maybe I'm the one who makes them mad. No. Run. That's a dangerous person to be with. I hope this class and this series of lessons is helpful. This lesson was on things to look for when you're looking for a mate, things to look for when you're dating, good things and red flags. If you would like more information, if you would like to get together and study the Bible one-on-one, that's available as well. You can always reach me at 503-644-9017. If you like this class and would like other material that we've put together, you can go to www.beavertonchurchofchrist.net. Thank you.